Rosie, I'll let you go first.
Oh, ever the gentleman. So hi, I'm Rosie. I'm a teacher of English at the Ecclesbourne School in Derbyshire. It's our second year working with Shine Media, and we had a pretty successful first year. We won Writer of the Year with a Year 8 student, so that was brilliant, and it's just been a really positive experience. I was pretty daunted at the idea of setting it up, but Alan really helped me and kind of mentored me through it. So it's nice that we get to do a little bit of a team effort to try and get more teachers on board today. So he's got much more advice to give you than me, but getting over those first hurdles, I might be able to share some hints and tips.
Hi, I'm Alan Williams. I work at Altrincham Grammar School for Boys. I've been with Shine for about 7 years. I think this will be the 7th year. I was called a veteran last week, which upset me, but never mind. The whole experience has been fantastic for us and the boys. We are a boys' grammar school, so when I refer to the students, I do refer to them as the boys, but it's been fantastic for us and the boys. Annalise and Shine and everyone associated with the whole process have been nothing but welcoming and accommodating. And it's been an unusual last year working with Rosie because she was new to the system. I really enjoyed that experience as well. And I think that's something that we're looking to both take on board and to try and get some new people involved over the next couple of years as well. We're here to take any of your questions. So at any point, if you've got any questions for us, please feel free to ask. But I'll hand back to Annalise.
Thanks. Right, well, if I just sort of ask a couple of questions. So I'm not aware that you have registered or entered before, but correct me if I'm wrong.
No, we've not registered before.
Okay, so have you actually started your publication off yet?
Yes.
Yes, and what have you started?
It's a magazine. The plan is it will be primarily digital release because of the way that our budget for it is working, but we will hopefully print a few copies for the students that have had things published in it.
And the way that it's being run is as an elective. So our school does after school electives, and we've opened it up to year 9 and year 10, sort of initially for the first go at it, I suppose. And that's how we're putting it together. We've literally just finished the elective this evening, actually. So yeah, we've just been working on it.
Okay, it might actually be helpful at this point if you have a bit of a chat with Alan as to how he built his team, because he does have quite a big team, and they have been going for quite some time. So do you have any questions in the first instance about the team and how you put it together and who does what and how it's managed?
I suppose just starting out, Alan, how did you kind of begin? Did you say seven years that you'd been on this journey, I suppose? So how did you begin?
The Publications Committee is 10 years old this year. I've been with Shine for 7 years. Really, in the past, what used to happen was the IT teacher used to collect in lots of information from teachers. That would go to his wife, who was in charge of doing the graphic design, and then it would be sent out to students. And it was a very formulaic approach to the publication. When the job was advertised, I wanted to change the emphasis so that it was student-led. And that was essentially what got me the job, was because I said, it's written by the boys and it's for the boys.
Yeah.
So setting up that original team was actually quite difficult because there was lots of interest and lots of people gave me all promises. They would do this, they would make sure that they'd meet these deadlines. And on a lot of occasions, they let me down, which was shocking to me. And I suppose looking back in the boys' grammar school, where they're very articulate and can interview well, actually delivering on those was really difficult to start off with. As I say, we changed the process in which we get people on board now. So we do applications, we do a task that they've got to complete, i.e. a report, and then they go to interview. The interview at the end really is just affirmation that what they've done on the previous 2 occasions is right, and it just makes them feel more welcome. We also have a mentor program as well, which I spoke to Rosie about, and the mentor program lasts about 6 weeks, so that each of the new members of the committee work with a mentor. They have to complete a range of tasks which we need to do as part of the publication, And then at the end of the 6 weeks, they get the certificate, they get an engraved book, they get a pen, and they also get a badge. Incidentally, today, we welcomed 6 fully initiated members. The head came down and gave out all of the So it's that feeling of ownership, which I always go on about, and in these sessions, which we try to incorporate with the boys. And what happens is we get a couple of members join, and then the friends want to join because they see what they're doing, and they get out of form period, or they get out to go to assembly, or they jump the lunch queue, or they get to go to events, and they can go and see Little Shop of Horrors was a couple of weeks ago. They get to see that for free, and they can go backstage, or we take them to areas that they don't normally go to in the school. And all those little things at lower school are big wins for people, and especially for me, getting them on board. At upper school, it's much different because the emphasis is all about UCAS applications and getting into university and being a part of that team. And lots of the boys who have been to interview have found that they've spent a lot of time talking about being involved in publications and what that means, and meeting deadlines and working together, all the things that as a lecturer, it's really important that they identify those things with the lads, and they can do the things that they're asking them to do at university. I know that was a long answer, sorry about that.
No, that's great. Brilliant. We probably should have mentioned as well, so we're at Loris Tudor Hume. I missed that out of our little introduction, apologies. And so the school itself only started 4 years ago, so we don't yet have year 11s. Right. Hence the oldest students that we could have working on our magazine are the year 10s. But yeah, just felt that as for a little bit of context, really. But no, that was really, really useful. Thank you for that.
How often do your sort of team meet?
We meet every Tuesday during registration. And the reason why we meet on a Tuesday is because they can get an opportunity on the Monday to catch up on things from the meeting on a Friday. On the Friday, we get the school bulletin. So that is when we will assign people to do roles. And then we will find out how they've been performing in the Tuesday meetings. I have 2 assistant editors and a training assistant editor. And for you guys, it's all about where you have them in terms of the years. So the person who's in charge, the assistant editor who's in charge, he's in year 13. I've got one in year 12, and the one's in year 11. And the next assistant editor will be appointing at the end of this year will come from year 8 or year 9, because we're continually having that progression of people so that they can pass down the knowledge and they can work together. That's a tough call as well, when you get somebody who's in year 9 making that step up to assistant editor, and they're actually then speaking to people in year 10 and 11, and they're above them in terms of the food chain, so to speak, and they feel they're trying to get work out of them. And they've got to work closely with me, and the guidance that you do with that is quite a tough call as well. So trying to find the points of responsibility is a difficult task. And I know, Rosie, that's something that you've dealt with over the last couple of weeks as well, isn't it? Or sorry, the last couple of months.
Yeah, so ours was a little bit chaotic, trying to launch in the middle of a global pandemic, where there was no mixing of year groups. So we kind of did it remotely, and basically only had year 7 working on it for the first year, and then as they kind of found their feet, we introduced some year 8s that were really keen writers as well. So we had, you know, quite a small team the first year, and responsibility was dealt basically on performance. You know, you've done really well, would you consider taking this extra step up? But this year I've opened it up to the whole school, so we've got year 13 and year 7s working together. So the mentoring process has happened quite organically with that. So the year 7s will do a piece and take it to our 6th form teams. We've got a really good core of year 12 and 13. I haven't had to do any formal kind of applications like Ellen, because we're not quite there yet, but you know, the first meeting we had, there was over 70 people in one room that showed an interest. So that was pretty difficult to manage, wasn't really expecting it, had to get chairs and tables from another classroom, but since then we've kind of split off into core groups. So we'll have a design team who work on the graphics and the overall look of the magazine, and kind of writing team and an editing team, and we kind of rotate through those. We meet at lunchtime, so once a week on a Thursday lunch we have a get together, and lots of kind of idea swapping and checking of work and ideas, which is nice, but it is quite chaotic still because there's just so many people involved, but we're getting there and it's taking form. We're on track to release a little Christmas taster edition, so Christmas themed. They're very excited, lots of mad ideas coming through, but it is really nice and inclusive, so yeah, I'm happy with the progress so far.
Nice, thanks.
Good. So how many people have you actually got on your team at the moment?
Have we ever counted them? I mean, somewhere around 15.
Yeah.
Okay. And has there been any particular interest in specific elements of the publication? Have you got particular students that like the photography or cartoons or writing or editing?
So we held an interview process with applications and interviews with the head of school and the deputy head for the roles of editor-in-chief and assistant editor. Terrified the living daylights out of them, which we were thrilled about. Honestly though, one of them, their application form read better than the average university application. Was slightly astounding.
That was one of the year 9s as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
Ariane can write my job applications in the future. She was good. So what we've spent the last term doing was getting our editor-in-chief and assistant editors taking on that role, and having the confidence to do it, because we have year 9s and 10s and there isn't that much of an age gap between them. It doesn't happen quite as organically as say year 13 and year 7 would. And then within our other staff, we've got one student who just does illustration and art, one who primarily does, and then the rest are all very keen writers. So we're finding we've got a lot more written content at the moment than we have visual content, but it is coming together.
And does there seem to be a particular topic that they're interested in, particular themes, or is it just totally random?
I'd say they are all interested in social issues
and social justice.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've got articles about mental health, we've got articles about
The
Western
price
beauty
of
standards,
school uniform, being high.
One student is writing a politics 101, a guide to what left wing and right wing mean in the world we live in.
Yeah.
Wow.
They are the 15 students we have got are formidable. I'm not sure how we're going to keep it going, but they are good.
Yeah.
Have you had the opportunity to look at the website, and are you aware of the categories that we have?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so we met a couple of times, didn't we, prior to meeting the whole team and meeting with the whole team, just myself and Charlie, even before like the summer, like in the summer term when we first started thinking about this, and sort of looking at the past entries and just trying to get an idea really of the sort of caliber of work, I suppose. Yeah.
Okay. So when just so because it helps us to improve things, when you first looked at the website and first considered entering the competition, what were your first considerations? What were the things that you thought about first, and your first sort of challenges and hurdles, and did we do enough to help you overcome them?
I think the biggest question we had for quite a while was what we were going to make. We spent a lot of time discussing magazines sort of changing their situation within the industry at the moment is obviously it's shifting away from print more towards digital and the way they work, but the complexity of creating a digital magazine would be beyond our students at this stage. So we would sort of spent quite a lot of time talking about that really. Doesn't answer your question. Sorry.
No, it does. It actually does, because at our last committee meeting, one of the things that we did was we reviewed all the categories, which we do every year anyway. And it was decided that we should actually introduce a multimedia category. Now, before I go any further, I am not technically minded. So as to any major questions, I may well have to say I'll get back to you. But the point being is that with the multimedia, up until this year, a school could only enter one type of publication. So either a newspaper or a magazine or a website or a podcast. Yeah. And we decided that actually that the time had come when the school should be able to enter, you know, a multimedia. So if they have a radio station or they do a regular podcast, in addition to a magazine or a newspaper. So I forgot my train of thought now. I was going to ask you a question.
I suppose our initial sort of that difficult decision of what do we make, I suppose would be made slightly less difficult with the option of submitting different types of media. But no, that is really helpful sort of to know.
One of the things that I would say is you'd be surprised how many people come to you with, did you know we can do? And I get that all the time. I've got somebody called Ayush, and he says, I think we should look at the website. I've drawn this up. I've done an interactive board. And you go, okay.
Wow. Yeah.
And a lot of the time you don't actually understand what he's talking about. But you nod and you say, yeah, that sounds like a good idea, go with it. And then when he gets to the stage of, here's what I've put together, so, and I say things like, okay, so how would I access this away from school? How would I be able to click on this? And then it starts to come together. So yeah. I wouldn't use my lack of knowledge as a means of saying to somebody, well, I don't think we should do that. Quite often I'll say to people, okay, investigate it, find out if it will work, and then we'll have a meeting together and we'll take it to the head of IT or the head of school. So, I mean, you'd be surprised sometimes what they come out with and the ideas they've got.
Yeah.
And when you roll with that idea, sometimes great things happen from it.
Yeah.
I noticed as well, we've got somebody else at the bottom, Annalise, and my screen anyway, somebody called W. Pickering.
Yes, Wendy. She said she may well be able to duck out, but Wendy.
Yeah, I can hear you and see you. I'm on my work's laptop, but for some reason it's saying the Zoom's not picking up my camera. But I use it all the time on Teams. I don't know what's going on there. So yeah, I mean, I'm absolutely at a completely different stage to you guys because I haven't decided yet if I'm 100% even going to think about an entry. So at the moment, I've got year 10 top set, about 9 children who potentially are interested. We've looked at the site, we've looked at the categories. We have got no further than that, other than I've spoken to my deputy head about what kind of funding might be available before we go ahead, because we're not a very big school, so we don't have loads of money. And our school has stopped doing its newsletter sort of about 18 months ago. Now, I only joined them at Easter, so they've moved on to doing all their sharing of information through their website instead and through Twitter. So I was looking at the categories again today, and I think I teach English, I don't teach media, and I don't have any media skills, but I think the best category really for us is to think about the focus that you have for the climate change and maybe the young writer, maybe going down that angle as opposed to putting together a production as in magazine, newsletter, etc., etc. I have a contact at Liverpool that's just finished a master's in media, and she's willing to get on board and help us with writing and things around copyright, things about deciding on good stories, that sort of thing. But apart from that, we literally have had 2 very, very brief meetings to say, yeah, they're very keen. My issue is going to be year 10 top sets are very stretched in terms of their own time. I'm stretched in terms of my time. So if we go ahead, it will be a small contribution as opposed to a big project. So I just really wanted to hear what people were doing and, you know, listen to people's experiences. But I have to say, you sound a lot further along the line than we are.
If I can respond to this one, because I'm also a teacher of English, and we had 0 funding in our first year.
Okay.
So that's not kind of the end point. So the way that we set it up is that we created an online space where the kids could add their own writing and add anything that they wanted to do outside of school because we weren't allowed to meet inside of school. So time-wise, I just kind of indicated when something needed editing to our team, and they picked that up and then sent me or sent the design team the final editions. So we did it with no funding, very little time, and it was probably not the most interactive process in terms of the whole team coming together, but that was just because of the bubbles that we weren't allowed to pop. What was great about Shine last year, from kind of a newbie point of view, is that they put on lots of workshops that I snapped up. So we did a workshop with the Two Sides journalist printing company that tackled the sustainability aspect of print journalism. So it's 3 year 7 girls, 4 year 7 girls who met with a really nice gentleman online and went through a presentation about the statistics and the impact on the environment, and they got to do a bit of Q&A session. So that was brilliant. So it's not just about the final publication, and it's about just engaging with something that seems a bit more real life than your creative writing tasks and your newspaper reports in English lessons. It gives it kind of more relevance, and gives them a voice sometimes, to just the space to write what they want to write about, which is one of the aspects that I've really enjoyed about Shine.
So that was one of the questions that I was going to ask. So I've told them today that obviously we break up next week. I've told them that communications at the moment are probably going to just be by email and a quick 15 minutes here and there at breaks and things. But one of the things I was going to ask is, if we did register, but we didn't actually get to the stage where we produced a final version of something, is that still okay? Do we have to produce a final version of something? That was one of my questions, actually.
Okay. I think rather than say, yes, you have to finish something off, I would suggest that you get it started. Keep me posted. If there's anything in particular that I can help with, and I'll explain about Ask the Expert in a minute, then don't be tough at this stage. I mean, you may find that you get to the end of the process and we haven't quite got enough to enter, but you will then have a taste of what you need to do for next year. So don't be put off at the first hurdle. Well, let's
no, I didn't realise that was an option, actually. So from the sounds of it, then people have been doing it for a while, but that doesn't matter, does it? If we didn't enter this year, we could. Right. Okay. No, that's good to know then. Thank you.
What we also have online is, last year we put together a series of Ask the Expert short videos, which were between 10 and 20 minutes long, and they covered all of the categories that you can enter, plus some additional stuff. There's one which is a teacher speaking to a student, and then there's lots of different topics that are covered, so I can direct you to that on the website a little later on. But the most important thing is have a go. You know, I'm quite sure, and hopefully Rosie won't mind me saying this, Alan won't mind me saying this, you know, if you get to the point where you could do with a little bit of encouragement or a little bit of help from a teacher's perspective, then I'm quite sure Rosie, Alan, they'd be happy to help as well. The whole point is to get you going, get you interested, get the students, because what we have found is that once they actually start, the momentum really does pick up, and it kind of evolves, and they get going quite quickly. And once they've got the taste for it, the process becomes, I wouldn't say easier, but it does escalate quite quickly. So that's a long answer to your question, but the nub of it is that...
No, that's good. I do have some very gifted year 10s, so it would be great. My concern really was, if I made a commitment and then I couldn't meet it, as in we just couldn't finish a project, or we didn't have the skills to finish it, or, you know, but no, if we can just say, yes, we're definitely going to give it a go, and that's enough for now, then they're definitely keen, and I'm keen, so that's fine, that's great.
Yeah, get going, and we'll worry about the rest.
Two things that I pick up on. Two things that I pick up on is the first you said about copyright. If you go along to the Shine Awards, there's quite often a seminar on copywriting, and that was really useful to us when we first started out, because we had issues, you know, with imagery and permissions and things. So to sit in that seminar was enlightening to us, so that gave us the opportunity then to develop that aspect. But the second thing I pick up upon is that you said at the start that you normally use Teams, so I assume you use Teams in school, is that correct?
Yes.
So when
I used Zoom before, but we use Teams at the minute.
Right. So when you said about emailing people, it's actually probably one of the worst techniques you can use, because you're relying on people reading those emails. Then you can create your own team, your own publications team, and you can add members to that team. You'd have your team's group, and then when you've got that, as Annalise says, that ball rolling, then lots of things can happen within that team. So you can put documents into there that people can access. You can do your online meetings if you wanted to do it that way, and you can get across to somebody in words and in a Teams meeting much quicker than you could via an email, or in a Teams message. You can see if they've read it and things. So I would suggest going down that route rather than doing your communication through email at the moment.
Yeah, I'll check that with school, because I have to use the school systems. We have Teams for the staff. I'm not sure if they allow it for the students, but I'll check that. Thank you.
Okay. Charlie, Nat, have you anything else you need to ask us?
I don't think anything comes to mind at the moment. We're still very early. We've got essentially we've got a flat plan. Every page is earmarked for the first issue. Everyone knows what they're writing. We've had a good number of drafts in today. Got a lot of reading to do.
Yeah,
to
what you were saying about how quickly things pick up momentum, like that really resonates after today. At the start of this, I thought, gosh, this is an overwhelming task, and we know what students can, well, we give them a deadline, but then they get other priorities. Like, they've got a lot going on, bless them. So I thought, again, that it would be a bit more of a slog trying to get the work in from them, but actually it's picked up momentum so quickly, like you say, and now suddenly we have like 4 drafts to read and sort of speak to them about. But it's really good to know that, because you guys seem so approachable in terms of being able to email and check in and ask about things. And I think that's really good. I think when we first looked at the Shine Awards, I wasn't sure whether it'd be a sort of faceless company that we sort of submit the final thing to. And being in this is so lovely, because I do feel as if there's a lot of support there, which is good.
Can I just ask as well, do you find that people at first feel a bit overwhelmed making just the choice of which category to try and run for? Because I've looked at the categories a few times with the students, and we just kind of feel like we just haven't decided which is the best one for us. Now, I suppose it wouldn't matter if halfway through the process we thought, actually, do you know what, we could enter this for something else instead, or we could say this isn't working, let's have a look at something different. I'm thinking we'll start quite small, I suppose, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, our initial meeting, so we used to have a very old school newspaper called Beach Leaves, and that kind of faded away quite sadly. So we had a launch meeting where we just brainstormed what we wanted to do and what was the purpose of this publication. And we didn't think about, I'm not sure if this is the right thing to say in front of Annalise, but we didn't think about the boxes of what it was going to be in. We just wanted the kids to have that ownership. And once it started coming together, we matched the pieces to the categories. Right. And actually that covered quite a few of them, which was great. And it gave it kind of more of an organic sense, an authentic voice from the students. I had very little to do with it, which I also think is great. But they decided what it was going to be, how it was going to look, and also which categories matched up with the contents. So again, I wouldn't worry too much about that. I didn't assign like, you're going to enter Writer of the Year right now, and this is your deadline. It didn't happen like that. It was it was much more of a process where things were refined and drafted and polished. So it's an interesting one.
Okay,
I'd say the same thing, really. Just enter as many as you can where you can. We do it retrospectively, so to speak, where we look and say, okay, so best photograph, which one do we like best? Best written piece, which one do we like best? So we'll have that conversation with the assistant editors, and then we say, okay, you do that one, you do that one. And even when it comes to writing the application as well, that goes to the boys. I'll do a couple, they'll do a couple, and then it all gets put together and then sent off. So I wouldn't say it's a question of oh, we're going to enter this here.
Right.
We now need to think about that. I think the only one is the climate change one, which we're thinking about in advance. All the others we usually do retrospectively.
And do they have to be linked? Like, does each piece that a student does have to be linked? So does a magazine cover have to link to an article? Does a photograph have to link to the theme in the article? Or can they all just be much in isolation?
I mean, mine are usually pretty random, certainly creative, but there's no theme necessarily running through them, because it's what it's what kids want to write about. So yeah, there's it's not quite as professional as that, I'm afraid. But that's the joy of it. And Shine have special categories that, they will award prizes for something outstanding in its own right. So I celebrate that madness and that creativity, and maybe one day the judges will agree with me and pick up on something, but you just don't know. So I wouldn't mind, enjoy it rather than kind of try and cram it in is my advice.
And can I ask, what sort of numbers do you get involved in this? Like, sort of how many schools will you work with, and how many entries will you get when it gets to the final stages?
It differs. I mean, we can go from a couple of hundred to the sort of final awards. No, don't worry. The final awards day is about 30 or so schools, 35 schools, but it changes every year. I think the most important thing is, as I second what Rosie said, is that don't overthink and don't worry too much about the entry form. Just have fun doing the publication, and we'll work the rest out. The admin that all can be dealt with later. The important bit is just having some fun and getting them engaged. The rest we'll sort out.
Okay, that sounds fab then. Thank you.
Pleasure.
And one of the things I was going to say as well is our front cover is regimented. It's in the style. It continues through all the editions. And every year, I think we're never winning the front cover prize, because the best front covers are always the ones that are organic and they're intuitive. We've just decided to go along that route because that's part of our identity with the magazine. So when you were saying about, does it have to link into other things? I would say out of all the previous winners I've seen, absolutely not. They can be standalone pieces in themselves, and they'll just work and probably have more chance of winning as well.
Okay, and how long have you been doing it, sorry? How many years?
I've done publications. I'm publications officer within the school, so I've been doing that for 10 years now, and this is my 7th year with Shine.
Right.
I've only been doing it, this is my 2nd year, so we only entered for the first time last year. So it was a bit of a whirlwind, but I loved it.
Thank you.
Wendy, I just wanted to say hello because I'm the chair of the committee, so I'm keeping quiet because I have a very noisy cat here who likes to meow very noisily. But also I'm just kind of listening because I want to hear the kind of questions that you've got. But yeah, don't worry too much about which categories you're entering. First of all, I think the idea is just to give your students some free range and let them express themselves. And as Alan was saying, you can hear him.
I do something in my lessons called free writing, which I've introduced to the school, and there's no rules to it. So basically, I'll put up a picture, or I'll put up a really controversial statement, or a really something strange that doesn't make any sense. Maybe something to do with a parody or something. And then I'll say there's no rules, so you don't have to think about any conventions, you can just write. And they absolutely love it. Doesn't matter who they are, they just love it. Now, that's the sort of thing that you're saying, just have fun with, and that's fine. And see what comes from it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right, okay. Right,
and if it's something, I mean, I many moons ago was an English teacher, but if it's not something that actually is within the lesson, you could always say, look, take this idea away, and some of them might be great drawers. They could make an illustration at home, or it's just getting their imaginations going, their creative impulses going.
Just about creativity and not worrying about the end result. Right, that sounds fantastic then. Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
Okay. Well, any questions please feel free to email me. I will do everything in my power to support you. And if I haven't got the answer, I will most certainly find it. And that might be that I contact Rosie and Alan and ask them to contact you. But the most important thing is have fun. If you need anything, always ask. We will do our utmost to help and support you. And hopefully we will have some more of these forums. And I will also send you both the information, or the links rather, to our Ask the Expert series from last year, which we plan to update and do again this year. So does anybody have any final questions for us?
One final thing I'd say is that the YouTube channel is really good because you've got all the videos on there to have a little look at as well.
That's fantastic.
You just read my mind there, because I was going to suggest to Wendy that that's a good starting point if there's not much time in school, just to send a link to one of those per week, and that will keep him ticking over too.
Oh, fabulous, fabulous. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
It's been really helpful.
Okay, bye-bye.
It's nice to